My lesson is about the 30 Years' War, the events leading up to it, and how it changed European thought for all the events that came after it. And I thought, since I only have a short time, I might as well just get to the actual war and what happens during it. So, all right, so we have a Europe that's only just managed to pull itself out of all the religious wars that were happening, all the small wars where all the Catholics and the Protestants were fighting each other. And we have all the different players, and all the countries kind of know who they want to ally with, know who they want a good excuse to fight, know which families they want to eliminate if they can get away with it, know who they want to steal land from if they can get away with it. And everyone's attention is sort of on Austria, because the king there is quite old. And anytime you want to know where the next war in Europe is going to start for most of history, you just look at the ages of all the kings. Whichever king is oldest and is most likely to die first, that's probably where the next war is going to start. So Rudolf II of Austria is quite old. He's getting there in age. And there are two people who are kind of competing to sort of take his spot. And the first is called Ferdinand II, and he is very, 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 very Catholic, and he's quite powerful, and he's sort of, Rudolf himself wants Ferdinand to take over next. And he wants to go back, sort of, back to the age of fighting, back to when they could just declare everyone Catholic and just kill all the Protestants and eliminate any sort of new laws that sort of protect any of the Protestants. And Ferdinand wants to go back to that. And so in consequence, all the Protestants in, the German part of the Holy Roman Empire, are panicking, and they don't want this guy to take over. So they rally their support behind someone called Frederick V. So it basically becomes Ferdinand versus Frederick to see who's going to take over next. And it turns out that Ferdinand wins. Ferdinand takes over, Ferdinand gets the palace, and he starts to do exactly what he said he would do, which is to try to make everything Catholic again. And so Frederick and all the Protestants break into the palace, rush up the stairs, go to the main office, find Ferdinand and all his aides, and they throw them out the window. And the event is called the Defenestration at Prague, which means the time that they got thrown out the window at Prague. And that sort of begins the war. After that, everyone starts fighting. All the different countries start piling in. Spain, who we talked about, is technically supposed to ally with the German states no matter what. Spain obviously ties, and it wants to protect the Catholics, right? And Spain is a superpower right now, so the Catholics are just decimating the Protestants left and right. And it's at that point that Denmark comes in, because it wants to make sure the Catholics don't get any stronger. It wants to maybe steal some land from Germany. So Denmark comes in and does its best to defend the Protestants. And halfway through that, Sweden comes in and just absolutely astonishes everyone by sweeping all the Catholics back, saving Denmark, starting to turn the tide in favor of the Protestants. And eventually, both of these countries get defeated. And that's the point at which Catholic France finally joins the war. France has been staying out of this war because in theory it's supposed to help the Catholics, but France actually hates Spain and it hates Austria, so it doesn't want to actually help them become any stronger. And it's at this point in the war when it looks like the countries that France hates so much are really legitimately going to win this and completely destroy Denmark and Sweden and all their own Protestants, that France finally joins the war, and it joins it on the Protestant side. And this is huge. It's the first time in Europe that this happens, and that sort of marks the time that Europe stops caring so much about religion and just cares about politics, straight up politics the way we think about it now. And then finally the war ends and no one wins. The war doesn't end because anyone is winning. The war ends because people are tired of war. The King of France has died halfway through this. You have a 5-year-old on the throne of France. Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden died in battle. People are just tired of fighting, and Germany has been decimated by war. So it ends, no land transfers, no power transfers, everything sort of goes back to the way it began. And this is also basically the first war in Europe where everyone sort of says, never again. We're not going to do this again. And this is the war where people start trying to come up with new ideas to prevent another war from happening. They don't succeed, but this is sort of the beginning of that. It's the beginning of political thinking. It's the end of the age of religious wars. It's the beginning of Europe trying to come up with new ways to think about politics so they don't have another war like this.